I remember the storm, before I remember anything else. Not the kind of storm you watch from a window with a warm drink in your hand. Not the kind people in quiet neighborhoods call beautiful. This one was violent, restless. It felt personal, like it had come looking for something or someone. That night, the sky over the city had turned a deep, suffocating gray long before the sun had fully set. By the time darkness fell, it wasn't just night anymore. It was something heavier, something that pressed against your chest and made it hard to breathe. The house stood at the far end of a quiet suburban street, large and imposing, the kind of place people admired from a distance. Tall windows, wide porch, clean lines that once spoke of wealth, comfort, stability. From the outside, it still looked perfect. Inside, it was anything but. The power had gone out hours earlier. At first, it had been just a flicker, the lights dimming, returning, dimming again, until finally everything surrendered to darkness. No hum of appliances, no soft glow from lamps, just silence and then the storm. Wind slammed against the walls, rattling the windows in their frames. Rain came down hard, relentless, like it was trying to break through the roof itself. Thunder cracked so loudly it felt like the house might split open. And yet, somehow, none of it was louder than the quiet inside. I sat on the hardwood floor of the living room, my back against the wall, knees drawn to my chest. The floor was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your body slowly until you stop noticing it altogether. I hadn't turned on a flashlight. I hadn't lit a candle. There was something about the darkness that matched what I felt inside. It didn't scare me anymore. What scared me was lying just a few feet away. My son. He was curled up on the couch at first, but at some point he had slipped down onto the floor, too weak to stay upright. A thin blanket was half draped over him, doing little to keep him warm. I watched him for a long time before I could bring myself to move. You would think a mother would rush to her child instantly. That instinct would override everything else. But there are moments no one talks about, when fear freezes you, when the possibility of what you might find becomes so overwhelming that even love hesitates. I was afraid to see how weak he had become. Afraid to confirm what I already knew. Another crash of thunder shook the house, and in the flash of lightning that followed, the room lit up for just a second. Just enough for me to see him clearly. Too clearly. My breath caught in my throat. "No," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. I pushed myself up, my legs stiff, unsteady, and walked toward him. Each step felt heavier than it should have, like I was moving through water instead of air. When I reached him, I dropped to my knees. Hey, buddy," I said softly, forcing warmth into my voice that I didn't feel. My hand hovered over him for a moment before finally resting on his shoulder. He felt so small, so light. "Ethan," I called his name gently. His eyelids fluttered, barely opening. His eyes, once bright, curious, full of life, looked distant now, like they were struggling to stay focused. "Mom," he whispered. That one word nearly broke me. "I'm here," I said quickly, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "I'm right here." He swallowed slowly, like even that simple action took effort. "I'm hungry." The words were soft. Simple. But they hit me harder than the storm outside ever could. Because I didn't have anything to give him. Not tonight. Not anymore. I had checked the kitchen earlier, twice. Opened every cabinet, every drawer, every container that might have held even a forgotten crumb. Empty. The fridge had stopped working when the power went out, but it didn't matter. There was nothing inside it to begin with. No milk, no leftovers, no fruit. Just cold air and a hollow space where food used to be. I had told myself I would figure something out. That I always did. But that night, I had nothing left to figure out. I sat down beside him and gently pulled him into my arms. He didn't resist. He didn't have the strength to. His head rested against my chest, and I could feel how warm he was, too warm. A different kind of fear crept in. "Hey, you're okay," I murmured, even though my voice trembled. I'll get you something, all right? Just hang on a little longer. He didn't question me. Kids don't question you when they believe in you. That's what makes it so hard. He trusted me completely. And I was failing him. His small hand clutched weakly at my sweater, holding on like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just the last thing he had. I pressed my lips to his forehead, closing my eyes as I did. For a second, I allowed myself to pretend that this was just a bad night, that tomorrow would come with sunlight and solutions. But even in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just one bad night. This was the result of everything that had gone wrong. Everything I had lost. Everything I couldn't fix. The house creaked around us as the wind pushed harder against it. Somewhere upstairs, a door slammed shut, echoing through the empty halls. The sound made him flinch slightly. It's just the storm, I whispered quickly, tightening my hold on him. You're safe, I've got you. Safe. The word felt like a lie the moment it left my mouth. Because what kind of safety looks like this? A dark house. An empty kitchen. A child too weak to sit up. And a mother who has nothing left to give. I rocked him gently, back and forth, like I used to when he was a baby. Back then, it always worked. A few soft movements, a quiet lullaby, and he would drift off peacefully. Now, even sleep felt dangerous. Don't fall asleep yet, I said softly, pulling back just enough to look at him. Stay with me, okay? Talk to me. His eyes opened a little more, but they were heavy. I'm tired. I know, I whispered. I know you are, just a little longer. His breathing was slow. Uneven. Each breath felt like it took effort. I counted them without meaning to. 1, 2. Pause. 3. Too long of a pause. My chest tightened. No, stay with me, I said, my voice rising slightly despite myself. Ethan, look at me. His eyes shifted, trying to focus. I'm here, I said again, softer this time, as if gentleness could keep him awake. I'm not going anywhere. That part at least was true. I wasn't leaving him. Not for anything. Not for anyone. Not even if staying meant facing the truth I had been trying so hard to ignore. Another flash of lightning lit up the room. For a second, everything was visible again. The empty walls. The worn furniture. The life we used to have, reduced to shadows. And in that brief light, I saw us. Not as we were, but as we had become. And it terrified me. Because deep down, I knew something had to change before the night ended. Or I was going to lose him. The storm didn't weaken as the night dragged on. If anything, it felt like it was growing closer, like the entire world outside that house was narrowing down to just us, trapped in a pocket of darkness and noise. I stayed on the floor with him in my arms, refusing to move unless I absolutely had to. Every time I shifted even slightly, I felt his weak grip tighten and then loosen again, like he was drifting somewhere between awareness and sleep. And sleep, I was afraid of sleep. Because every time his eyes stayed closed a little too long, my mind filled in the silence with thoughts I didn't want to think. I pressed my fingers gently against his cheek again. Still warm. Too warm. But his breathing was what scared me most. Slow, uneven, fragile, like a candle struggling against wind that refused to stop. Ethan, I whispered again, more urgently now. Talk to me, sweetheart, just a little anything. His eyelids fluttered. I don't feel good. I know, I said quickly, my voice breaking at the edges. I know you don't, I'm here, I've got you. But what did that even mean anymore? What does "I've got you" mean when you have nothing to give? No food. No medicine. No electricity. No way out because the roads outside were flooded. The storm too violent for anyone to even reach us if I tried calling for help. My phone had died hours ago. The charger was useless. Everything in this house had slowly turned into something useless. I looked around again, like I had been doing all night, hoping that somehow something would appear where there was nothing. The kitchen was down the hall. Empty. The pantry checked. Empty. Even the emergency shelf I had once kept, just in case, had been stripped over the past weeks when things had started getting worse. I had stretched everything as far as I could. Every meal became smaller. Every excuse became weaker. Tomorrow I'll fix it, I used to tell myself. But tomorrow had stopped arriving. Another loud crack of thunder made the windows shake violently. A gust of wind slammed against the house so hard I thought, for a second, the glass might break. Ethan flinched in my arms. I held him tighter instantly. "It's okay," I whispered, even though my voice shook. "It's just the storm. Nothing's going to hurt you. I won't let it." But even as I said it, I felt the lie sitting heavy in my chest. Because I couldn't protect him from hunger. I couldn't protect him from weakness. I couldn't protect him from time running out. He shifted slightly, his head resting deeper against me. "Mom," he murmured again, barely audible. "Yes," I answered immediately. "I'm cold. Cold." That word hit harder than the hunger. I pulled the thin blanket over him again, wrapping him tighter, my hands trembling as I tucked it around his small frame. I pressed him closer to me, trying to share whatever warmth I had left. "I've got you," I repeated softly. "Stay close to me." He didn't respond this time. His breathing continued, but it was quieter now. Too quiet. A new kind of panic started rising inside me. I shifted him slightly, just enough to see his face again in the faint light that flickered through the window. His eyes were half closed. Not fully asleep. Not fully awake. Somewhere in between. "No, no," I whispered under my breath. "Stay awake, please stay awake." I gently touched his cheek again. "Ethan, look at me." His eyes opened slightly. "Barely." "I'm here," I said quickly, leaning closer. "You're safe, you're with me, okay." He nodded faintly, or maybe it was just my imagination. I didn't care which. I needed him present. I needed him here. Because the moment he drifted too far away, I felt like I would lose something I could never get back. The house creaked again, louder this time, as if the structure itself was tired of holding on. Somewhere above us, something shifted, a soft thud, maybe debris from the storm outside finding its way in. I looked toward the hallway instinctively. Dark. Too dark. Every corner felt unfamiliar now, like the house had changed when I wasn't looking. I brought my attention back to him immediately. "I'm going to get you something," I said suddenly, more to convince myself than him. His fingers weakly tightened around my sleeve. "Don't go." That stopped me. Completely. I looked down at him, my chest tightening. I'm just going to check," I whispered. "Right here in the house, I'll be fast." But even saying that felt wrong. Because I already knew what I would find. Nothing. Still, I had to try. I carefully eased his grip off my sleeve, holding his hand for a second longer before gently letting it go. "I'll be right back," I promised again. This time, I wasn't sure if I was lying or hopping. I stood up slowly, my legs stiff, my body aching from sitting on the cold floor for so long. Every step away from him felt heavier than the last. Before I left the room, I turned back. He was watching me. Barely. "Don't close your eyes," I told him softly. He didn't answer. I walked into the hallway. And that's when the silence changed. It wasn't just empty anymore. It felt waiting. Like the house itself was holding its breath, watching me search for something it already knew didn't exist. I moved toward the kitchen again, my footsteps slow, hesitant. Every cabinet I opened made the same sound. Empty. Every drawer I checked gave me the same answer. Nothing. I stood there for a moment, gripping the counter, my head lowering slightly as exhaustion finally caught up with fear. And then, for the first time that night, I let myself admit it. I had nothing left. Not food. Not energy. Not answers. Just a child in the next room, waiting for me to save him from something I didn't know how to fight anymore. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. I wiped it away quickly. No, I whispered to myself, not yet. Because even if I had nothing, I still had time. And I was not going to waste it standing in an empty kitchen. I turned back toward the hallway and walked faster this time. Back to him. Back to whatever I still had a chance to protect. The hallway felt longer on the way back. It shouldn't have. The house hadn't changed. The walls were still the same pale color, the floor still the same polished wood that now felt cold under my bare feet. But something about the silence had shifted. It wasn't just empty anymore. It felt aware. Like the house knew what I was searching for and what I wouldn't find. I hurried back toward the living room, my heartbeat uneven, my mind already replaying his face in my head over and over again. Every second I was away from him felt wrong, like I was stepping further from something fragile that could disappear if I wasn't careful. When I entered the room, I froze. For one terrifying moment, I couldn't see him clearly. The storm outside flashed lightning again, briefly illuminating the space. And there he was. Still there. Still in the same place. But he looked smaller than before. More still. Ethan, I rushed back to him instantly, dropping to my knees beside him. His eyes opened slightly at the sound of my voice. Barely. I'm here, I said quickly, brushing his hair back again, my hands shaking more than I wanted them to. I'm right here. I just want to check something, okay? He didn't respond, but his fingers weakly moved toward me again, searching. I grabbed his hand immediately. I've got you, I whispered, holding it tightly. I've got you. But even as I said it, I felt something tightening in my chest. His grip was weaker than before. His skin felt hotter now. The fever hadn't gone away, it had grown. And hunger was still there too. A slow, invisible weight that was draining him bit by bit. I sat down beside him fully, pulling him into my arms again. He leaned into me without resistance, like even lifting himself was too much effort now. The realization hit me harder this time. He wasn't just tired. He was fatting. No, I whispered under my breath almost silently. No, no, no. I rocked him gently, trying to steady my breathing so he wouldn't feel my panic. You're okay, I said softly, even though my voice cracked. You're okay, just stay with me. But my mind was no longer calm. It was racing. There had to be something in this house. Something I missed. Something forgotten. I glanced toward the hallway again. The storage room. That thought returned, sharper this time. The old storage room at the back of the house. I hadn't been in there for a long time, not since things started falling apart. It was cluttered, forgotten, filled with boxes from a life that no longer existed. But what if? What if there was something still there? A can of food. A bottle. Anything. Hope is a dangerous thing when you're desperate. It doesn't ask permission before it takes hold. It just appears. And suddenly, I found myself standing again, carefully easing Ethan down onto the rug. I'm just going to check one more place, I whispered, smoothing his hair. I'll be right back, I promise. His eyes opened slightly wider this time. Don't go. The words were barely audible, but they stopped me in place. I looked at him, and for a moment, I almost stayed. Almost gave up the search entirely. But then I saw it again. His breathing. Slower than before. Weaker than before. And I knew staying wasn't an option. Not anymore. I'll be fast, I said softly. I promise. This time, I didn't wait for a response. I stood quickly and moved before I could change my mind. The house felt colder as I walked away from him again. Each step toward the back of the house felt heavier, like the air itself was resisting me. The hallway lights were dead, but I didn't need them. I knew this house well, or I used to. Now it felt like I was walking through someone else's memory. The storage room door was at the end of the narrow corridor. Old wood. Scratched surface. A simple lock hanging loosely, as if it had been forgotten for years. My hand hovered over it for a second. A strange hesitation filled me. Because opening it felt like opening a part of my life I had stopped visiting for a reason. Still, I had no choice. I pulled the door open. It creaked loudly, the sound sharp in the silence. Darkness greeted me inside. Thick, heavy, still. I stepped in cautiously, my hand reaching for the wall instinctively, trying to feel my way through the space. Dust filled the air, thick enough to make me cough softly. I waited a moment for my eyes to adjust. Then I saw them. Boxes. Stacks of old cardboard boxes, some crushed, some barely holding shape anymore. Forgotten furniture pushed into corners. Things covered in sheets that had long since turned gray with dust. A forgotten life. I moved deeper inside, my steps careful. Please, I whispered under my breath, please let there be something. I opened the first box. Empty. The second. Old clothes. The third. My heart stopped for a fraction of a second. Cans. Not many, not enough. But something. I reached in quickly, my hands shaking now for a completely different reason. Food. Old, dusty cans of soup. A few bottles of water sealed but forgotten. Not perfect, not ideal, but real. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't much. But it was something. And for the first time that night, hope didn't feel completely impossible. I grabbed everything I could hold and turned quickly toward the door. Ethan, I whispered, almost breaking into movement. I'm coming back. But as I stepped out of the storage room, holding the cans tightly against my chest, a distant sound echoed through the house. So faint I almost missed it. A cough. From the living room. My heart stopped. And I ran. Not walked, not hurried. Ran. The cans clutched tightly against my chest felt heavier with every step, like they were the only proof I had that I hadn't imagined hope just moments ago. But the moment that sound echoed through the house again, soft, distant, fragile, everything else stopped mattering. A cough. From the living room. My mind refused to process it fully at first. It repeated itself in fragments as I moved through the hallway. He coughed. He's still there. He coughed again. He's still breathing. The hallway that had felt endless before now felt like it was shrinking, pulling me forward faster than my legs could carry me. The storm outside roared louder as if it was chasing me, pushing me, reminding me that time was not something I had anymore. When I reached the living room, I almost dropped everything. Ethan was still there. But something had changed. He was curled slightly tighter than before, his small body trembling faintly under the thin blanket. His breathing was uneven, and every few seconds, a soft cough broke through it, weak, strained, like his chest was struggling to keep up. No, 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 I whispered as I dropped to my knees beside him. The cans slipped from my grip and rolled slightly across the floor, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except him. I placed my hand gently on his forehead. Burning. The fever had worsened. My chest tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. Hey, look at me, I said quickly, brushing his hair back again, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. I'm here. I'm right here. His eyes opened slowly. Barely. Mom, he whispered. The sound of it broke something inside me again. I've got you, I said immediately, pulling him into my arms. I've got you, I'm here now. But when I held him, I felt it. He was weaker. Noticeably weaker. His small body didn't resist, didn't respond the way it had before. It just rested against me, fragile and trembling like he was no longer fighting to stay awake, just existing in the moment because I was holding him there. I looked down at the cans scattered on the floor. Food. Finally. But even as I saw them, I realized something terrifying. He didn't even have the strength to care about food anymore. That thought hit harder than anything else that night. No, I whispered, almost angrily at myself. No, you're going to eat. You're going to be okay. I gently laid him back down and rushed to grab one of the cans. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped it twice before I managed to find something sharp enough to open it. The house had gone quiet again. Too quiet. Even the storm outside seemed distant for a moment, as if the world itself was holding its breath with me. I finally forced the lid open. A faint smell of old soup filled the air. Not fresh. Not perfect. But real. I grabbed a small spoon from a nearby drawer and hurried back to him. Ethan, I said softly, kneeling beside him again. Hey, I found food, okay? I found something for you. His eyes opened slightly again. But he didn't respond. I scooped a small amount and brought it closer to his lips. Just a little, I whispered. Please, just try. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, his lips parted slightly. It was the smallest movement. But it gave me hope so strong it almost hurt. Good, I said quickly, my voice breaking into relief. Good, that's it, just a little more. But after one small attempt, he turned his head slightly away. Weak. Tired. Unable. My hands froze midair. Hey, I whispered, trying to stay calm. It's okay, we'll go slow. But inside, panic was rising again. Because I realized something I wasn't ready to accept. He wasn't refusing food. He couldn't take it. His body was too weak. I set the spoon down slowly, my hands trembling again as I pulled him back into my arms. It's okay, I said softly, though my voice cracked. You don't have to force it, I've got you. He leaned into me again, his breathing shallow against my chest. The cans of food sat beside us, open and useless for the moment. I stared at them for a second, then back at him. And for the first time that night, I felt something heavier than fear. Helplessness that had nowhere left to go. The storm outside grew louder again, wind pressing against the windows like it wanted in. The house creaked under its force, every sound echoing like a warning. I held him tighter. Tighter than before. As if holding him harder could fix what was happening. But I knew it couldn't. I'm not going anywhere, I whispered into his hair. Not for a second, you hear me. No answer came. Only his uneven breathing. I closed my eyes briefly, trying to steady myself. Think. Do something. Anything. But every thought ended in the same place. Time. We were running out of it. And as I sat there in the middle of that silent living room, holding my child while the storm tore through the night outside, I realized the truth I had been avoiding since this all began. Food wasn't the only thing he needed. And I wasn't sure I had enough of anything left to give him. I stayed there holding him longer than I realized. Time stopped meaning anything in that room. There was only the weight of his body against mine, the uneven rhythm of his breathing, and the distant violence of the storm pressing against the house like it wanted to tear it apart. The open can of soup sat on the floor beside us, forgotten for the moment. The smell had already faded into the background, like even food had lost its power to matter. All that mattered was him. Ethan, I whispered again, though I wasn't even sure what I expected anymore. His eyelids fluttered slightly, not opening fully, just enough to show he was still here, still fighting in the smallest way possible. I'm here, I said quickly, almost desperately now, as if saying it enough times could anchor him to me. You're not alone, okay? You're right here with me. But his response was weak, a faint shift, a tiny sound that might have been a yes or just air leaving his lungs. I pressed my hand gently to his cheek again. Still burning. Still fatting. I looked around the room, suddenly overwhelmed by how useless everything felt. The house that once represented safety now felt like a silent witness to something I couldn't stop. I forced myself to move again. "Okay," I said under my breath, more to myself than him. "Okay, we try again, we go slow." I picked up the spoon. My hands were shaking less from fear now and more from exhaustion, like my body was finally realizing it couldn't keep up with what my heart was demanding. I dipped the spoon back into the soup. It was lukewarm now. Cold air had already started to take over everything. I brought it closer to him again. "Just a little," I whispered. "Just one bite, that's all I need from you." This time, I didn't rush. I waited. Patient. Hopping. His lips parted again, slower than before. A small moment of relief hit me so strongly, it almost made me cry out. "Good," I breathed. "Good, baby, that's it." He managed a tiny sip. Barely anything. But it was something. I held my breath like I was afraid. Even air might break the moment. When he swallowed, his face tightened slightly as if even that small effort cost him too much. Then he turned his head away again. Weakly. "Done." I froze. The spoon stayed in midair. "No," I whispered, barely audible. "No, no, it's okay, we're not stopping." But my voice was lying. I knew it. And so did he. His eyes opened a little more this time. Not fully focused, but enough that I could see him looking at me. Not asking. Just watching. And something in that look made my chest tighten in a way I can't explain. Because children don't look at their mothers like that unless they already feel something slipping away. I put the spoon down slowly. My hands trembled as I set it aside. "Hey," I said softly, forcing calm into my voice. "You're okay, you're just tired, that's all." But even as I said it, I knew how hollow it sounded. I gently pulled him into my arms again. He didn't resist. He barely moved. Just settled there, like his body had accepted stillness more than survival. I rocked him slowly. Back and forth. Back and forth. A rhythm I used to use when he was small and afraid of thunderstorms like this. Back then, it worked. Back then, I could fix things with warmth and voice and presence. Now, I wasn't sure I could fix anything at all. "I'm sorry," I whispered suddenly, the words slipping out before I could stop them. His small hand moved slightly against my shirt. A faint grip. Not strong, but present. "I'm sorry," I repeated, my voice breaking now. I'm trying, I swear I am." The storm outside cracked louder again, thunder rolling through the sky like something breaking apart above us. The house responded with a low creak, as if it was tired too. I held him tighter instinctively. But then I felt it. His body was not reacting the same way anymore. The warmth was still there, but the energy was. It was like holding something that was slowly becoming stiller, quieter, further away. My breathing quickened. "No," I whispered again, more sharply this time. "Stay with me, don't drift, look at me." I gently lifted his face so I could see him better. His eyes were half open. Unfocused. "Ethan," I said, trying to steady my voice again. "Hey, listen to me, okay? I need you here with me." He didn't respond. Not really. Just a faint blink. Slow. Heavy. And that silence, that lack of response, hit harder than anything else that night. Because it wasn't refusal. It wasn't disobedience. It was distance. Like he was already somewhere I couldn't fully reach. I stood up suddenly, still holding him, panic rising fast. Okay, we try something else," I said quickly, almost to myself. "We keep you awake, that's it, just stay awake." I started walking around the room with him in my arms. Back and forth across the living room. The storm outside was louder now, matching the rhythm of my footsteps. "Ethan, look at me," I kept saying softly. "Stay with me, talk to me, anything." But his head stayed against my shoulder. Still. Quiet. Too quiet. I stopped walking. My legs felt weak again. I looked down at him, really looked this time. And for a second, everything inside me went still. Because I realized something I had been refusing to see clearly all night. He wasn't just tired. He wasn't just hungry. He wasn't just sick. He was slipping away from me in a way I didn't know how to stop. And I didn't have another plan. No next step. No backup. Just him. And me. In a house that suddenly felt far too big for two people trying to hold on. I sank back down onto the floor slowly, pulling him into my lap. Holding him like I could keep him from drifting, just by refusing to let go. "I've got you," I whispered again, but this time it didn't sound strong. It sounded like a prayer. The storm answered with another crack of thunder. And I stayed there, rocking him, refusing to let the silence win. The night had changed its shape. That's the only way I can explain it. It wasn't just a storm anymore. It felt like time itself had slowed down inside that house, stretching every second into something unbearable. The wind still hit the walls, the thunder still cracked through the sky, but none of it felt separate anymore. It all blended together with his breathing, with my fear, with the silence in between. I kept holding him. I didn't know what else to do. My arms had started to ache, but I didn't loosen my grip. Not even a little. Every time I felt his body shift slightly, I tightened my hold instinctively, as if pressure alone could keep him here with me. "Ethan," I whispered again, my voice rough now, worn out from repeating his name like a lifeline. "Talk to me, baby, just stay with me." His head rested against my chest. Still. Too still. The small movements he had earlier, the faint responses, the weak attempts, were becoming fewer. Longer pauses between breaths were stretching out in a way that made my stomach tighten with every passing second. I pressed my fingers against his back gently. Still warm, but weaker. Everything about him felt like it was slowly fatting into something I couldn't grab onto properly anymore. I looked around the room again. It was ridiculous, really. I already knew there was nothing else in the house. I had checked every corner, every cabinet, every space that could possibly hold something useful. But desperation doesn't listen to logic. It makes you search the same places again, just in case reality has changed its mind. My eyes landed on the kitchen doorway. Empty. Dark. Silent. And for the first time that night, a thought formed in my mind that I didn't want to face. This wasn't something I could fix alone anymore. I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry, tight. "No," I whispered under my breath, shaking my head slightly as if I could push the thought away. "No, I can handle this." But even as I said it, my grip on him trembled. Because I couldn't ignore what I was seeing anymore. His breathing wasn't just slow. It was unstable. Uneven in a way that didn't feel normal. I placed my hand gently under his chin, lifting his face slightly. "Ethan," I said softly, more firmly now, "look at me." His eyes opened a little. Not fully. Just enough. But the focus wasn't there. That scared me more than anything else. I pressed my forehead briefly against his. "Stay with me," I whispered again. "Just stay with me." He didn't respond. Not this time. The silence that followed felt heavier than all the noise outside. I stood up suddenly, still holding him. "I need help," I said out loud this time, my voice breaking through the room. "I need help." Saying it made something inside me collapse slightly. Because admitting it meant accepting I couldn't control what was happening anymore. I walked toward the hallway again, carrying him carefully. The house felt colder now, not physically, but emotionally. Like every room I passed through was reminding me of how alone I actually was. I glanced at the wall where the phone used to be charging. Dead. Useless. My phone was still off. No power. No signal anyway, even if it had worked. The storm had knocked out everything hours ago. Still, I reached the spot instinctively, as if hopping something had changed. Nothing had. Of course not. I let out a shaky breath. Okay, I whispered. Okay, think. But my thoughts kept circling back to him. His head rested weakly against my shoulder. His small hand barely held onto my shirt anymore. It would tighten slightly, then loosen again, like even holding on was becoming too much effort. That's when panic hit harder. Not loud panic. The quiet kind. The kind that spreads slowly through your chest and makes everything feel distant. I turned back toward the living room. I needed to keep him warm. Keep him awake. Keep him here. I sat back down on the floor, pulling him into my lap again, wrapping both arms around him tightly. Okay, I said softly, forcing control into my voice again. Okay, we're going to stay awake together, just you and me. All right. No response. But I kept talking anyway. I'm here, I continued. I'm not going anywhere, you hear me? I'm right here. The storm outside suddenly roared louder, as if responding. A flash of lightning lit up the room for a split second. And in that split second, I saw his face clearly. And something inside me froze. He looked distant. Not gone. Not fully. But like he was somewhere just slightly out of reach, even while in my arms. Ethan, my voice cracked again. No, stay with me. I rocked him faster now, panic breaking through my control. Stay with me, baby. Please, look at me. His eyes fluttered again. Barely. Slow. I felt my chest tighten, so hard I thought I might collapse right there. I leaned closer to him, my voice dropping into something softer, more desperate. I need you here, I whispered. I can't do this without you. That was the truth. The raw, terrifying truth I hadn't wanted to admit. A long silence followed. Only his breathing filled it. Weak. Fragile. I closed my eyes for a moment, pressing him closer to me. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Not hope. Not denial. Something closer to decision. I couldn't stay here waiting anymore. I needed outside help. Somewhere, somehow. Even if the storm was bad. Even if the roads were flooded. Even if everything in me was telling me to stay where I could hold him. Because holding him wasn't enough anymore. I opened my eyes. And for the first time that night, I looked beyond the house. Beyond the storm. Beyond fear. I'm going to get you help, I whispered firmly, though my voice shook. I promise. I held him tighter for a moment longer. Then carefully shifted him in my arms. And stood up. The moment I stood up with him in my arms, the house seemed to react. The wind outside hit harder, as if it knew I was about to challenge it. The windows rattled violently, and somewhere deep in the structure, wood creaked like it was warning me to stay. But I couldn't stay. Not anymore. Ethan's body rested against me, heavier in a different way now, not physically, but emotionally. Like every second was adding weight I couldn't carry much longer. His breathing was still there, but faint, so faint I had to focus just to feel it. Okay, I whispered to myself, tightening my grip on him. We're going. I walked toward the front door. Each step felt like walking through resistance, like the house itself was trying to hold me back. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, shadows shifting with every flash of lightning outside. When I reached the door, I stopped. For a second, I just stood there, listening. The storm was brutal, rain hitting the roof like fists, wind screaming through gaps in the structure. The world outside sounded unstable, dangerous, alive with chaos. And I had to go into it. With him. I looked down at Ethan. His eyes were half closed again, his lips slightly parted, his small hand weakly resting against my shirt. Hey, I whispered softly, brushing his hair back. I'm going to get you help, okay? Just hold on a little longer. No response. Just breathing. Barely. I pressed my forehead against his for a second, closing my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not because I was giving up, but because I hadn't done enough sooner. Then I turned the lock. The sound felt too loud in the silence. Click. The door opened slightly, and immediately the storm rushed in. Cold air slammed against my face. Rain sprayed inside. Wind pushed hard enough that I had to brace myself while holding him tighter. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay." I stepped out. The outside world was nothing like inside. The street was flooded in places, water rushing along the pavement like small streams. Trees bent violently under the wind, their branches shaking like they might break at any second. The sky was almost black, broken only by flashes of lightning that turned everything into sharp, flickering images. I pulled my jacket tighter around Ethan, trying to shield him from the rain. "Stay warm," I whispered. "Stay with me." I started walking. Each step through the water felt heavier. My shoes sank slightly into wet ground, and wind pushed against me like it wanted me to turn back. But I didn't. I couldn't. "Help," I muttered under my breath, scanning the dark street. "There has to be someone." The nearest neighbor's house was visible at the end of the street. Lights were off. Everything looked abandoned in the storm. I adjusted Ethan in my arms. He shifted slightly. A weak sound left him. Not words. Just a faint breath. "Ethan," I said quickly, panic rising again. "Hey, look at me." His eyes opened slightly, just a slit. Still there. Still fighting. "Good," I whispered, almost breaking. "Good, baby, stay with me." I kept walking. Rain soaked through my clothes now, cold and sharp. My hair stuck to my face, but I didn't stop to fix it. All I could see was the road ahead, and the fear that I might not make it in time. "Please," I whispered into the storm, "just let me get help." A sudden gust of wind nearly knocked me off balance. I stumbled, but tightened my grip instantly. Ethan didn't react much. That scared me more than anything. "No, no," I said quickly. I've got you, I've got you." I steadied myself and kept going. My breath was uneven now, heart pounding against my ribs. Every instinct told me to turn back, to find shelter, to wait for morning. But morning felt too far away. Too late. A flash of lightning lit the street again. And for a second, I saw the distance. Too far. Too empty. No cars. No movement. No help in sight. Just storm. And silence between the storms. I looked down at Ethan again. His face was pressed against my chest, eyes barely open now. And in that moment, something inside me broke open fully, not in panic, but in realization. This wasn't just about finding help. It was about time. And I might already be running out of it. "I'm not losing you," I whispered firmly, more to myself than him. "Not here, not tonight." I tightened my grip again and forced myself forward. Step by step. Through the storm. Through the fear. Through everything that tried to pull me back. And for the first time since the night began, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was fighting. The storm made everything feel farther than it really was. The neighbor's house, just a short distance on a normal day, now felt like it kept moving away from me every time I blinked. Rain blurred my vision. Wind pushed against my body like it didn't want me to reach it. My legs were already tired, but I forced them to keep moving. Ethan was still in my arms. Still breathing. Still there. But quieter now. Too quiet. "Stay with me," I whispered again, my voice barely carrying over the storm. "Just a little longer. We're almost there." Almost there. Those words had started to feel like everything I had left. A promise I kept repeating, because stopping felt worse than hopping. The streetlights were dead, so the only light came in flashes, lightning splitting the sky, briefly revealing the world in sharp, broken frames. For a second, I saw the neighbor's house clearly. Dark, but real. I picked up my pace. Please, I muttered under my breath, shifting Ethan slightly to keep him secure. Someone be there, please. I reached the front steps. My shoes slipped slightly on the wet surface, and I had to steady myself against the railing while holding him tighter. Okay, I breathed. Okay, we made it. I climbed the steps quickly and knocked. Once. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Please, I called out, my voice breaking through the storm. Please, I need help. A pause. Only wind. Only rain. I knocked again, almost desperate now. Please, my son, he needs help. A light flickered inside. My heart jumped. Footsteps. Slow. Approaching. I leaned forward slightly, holding Ethan closer. The door finally opened just a crack. An older man stood there, squinting into the storm, confusion on his face. What's going on? He asked, raising his voice over the wind. I barely waited. Please, I said quickly, my voice shaking. He's sick. He's not responding properly. I don't have a phone, the power is out, I don't know what to do. I shifted Ethan slightly so he could see. The man's expression changed immediately. Concern replaced confusion. Good Lord, he said under his breath. Come in quickly. Relief hit me so fast my knees almost gave out. I stepped inside immediately. The warmth of the house felt unreal compared to the storm outside. Even the silence indoors felt different, not empty like ours, but full of life. Put him here, the man said, guiding me toward the couch. I carefully lowered Ethan onto it, my hands still not wanting to let go. No, don't leave him cold, I whispered, adjusting the blanket around him. I've got a heater on, the man said quickly. Just stay with him. I nodded, but my hands stayed on Ethan. He was still breathing. Still faint. But something about the change in environment made me realize just how bad it had been outside. Now that I wasn't fighting the storm, I could feel how fragile he really was. I brushed his hair back again. Ethan, I said softly. Hey, we're inside now, you hear me, we're safe. His eyes opened slightly. Barely. But they opened. That tiny movement almost broke me with relief. Good, I whispered, my voice shaking. Good baby, I'm here. The man returned quickly with a blanket and a small heater, setting it nearby. Did he eat anything? He asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. Not properly. He tried, but he couldn't. The man frowned. We should call emergency services, he said firmly. This looks serious. I tried, I said quickly. Phone's dead, no signal. He nodded once, already moving. I'll use mine. That moment, hearing someone else take control, made my chest tighten in a way I didn't expect. Not relief exactly. More like fear, loosening its grip, just enough for exhaustion to hit me fully. I sat down beside Ethan, my hand still holding his. You're okay, I whispered again. You're okay now, we made it. But even as I said it, I could see it. His body wasn't fully responding. Still weak. Still fatting and small. Subtle ways that terrified me more now, that we were inside safety. I leaned closer. Stay with me, I said again, softer. Please. Outside, the storm kept raging. But inside, there was finally a chance. A fragile one. And I was holding on to it with everything I had left. The house felt different now, not peaceful, but controlled. Like the storm still existed out there, but it no longer had us trapped inside it. Still, I couldn't relax. Not even for a second. I stayed beside Ethan on the couch, my hand wrapped around his small fingers. I kept checking his face every few seconds, watching for any change, any sign that he was slipping further away. He was still there, but barely. The man moved quickly through the room, speaking on the phone in a low, urgent voice. I couldn't catch all the words, only fragments. Child. Weak. No food. Storm. Possible dehydration. Each word made my chest tighten more. I leaned closer to Ethan. Hey, I whispered softly. You're doing so good, just stay with me, okay? His eyelids fluttered slightly. That small movement gave me hope again. But it was fragile. Too fragile. The man returned after a moment, hanging up the phone. They're sending help, he said firmly. Ambulance is on the way. It might take a bit because of the weather, but they're coming. I nodded quickly. Thank you, I whispered. But my eyes never left Ethan. Because their coming still felt too far away. Still not here. I gently adjusted the blanket around him again, trying to keep him warm. Help is coming, I said softly, brushing his hair back. You just have to stay awake a little longer for me. His lips parted slightly. A faint sound came out. Not a word. Just breath. But it was something. Good, I whispered, my voice breaking a little. That's it, stay right here. Minutes started stretching again. Even inside the house, time felt slow and heavy. I kept talking to him constantly, not because I knew it would fix anything, but because silence scared me. I'm sorry, I whispered at one point, my voice lower now. I should have done more sooner. His hand moved faintly in mine. A weak squeeze. It wasn't strong, but it was real. I know you're tired, I said gently. I know, but you're not alone, I'm right here. Outside, through the windows, the storm still flashed violently. Rain continued to hit the glass in waves, but it felt distant now, like another world entirely. Still, every thunderclap made me flinch slightly. Ethan did too. Hey, I said quickly, leaning closer. It's okay, you're safe. His eyes opened a little more this time. Not fully, but enough that I could see him trying. That effort alone made my throat tighten. You're strong, I whispered, even though my voice shook. You're stronger than this storm. The man checked the door again, watching outside. They should be here soon, he said. I nodded, but my focus stayed on Ethan. Soon didn't feel soon enough. I brushed my thumb gently across his knuckles. Stay with me, I repeated again, softer now. Just a little longer. His breathing shifted slightly, still weak, but steadier than before. That tiny change gave me something I hadn't felt all night. A small, fragile relief. I held onto it tightly. Not because everything was okay, but because I needed something to hold on to. Minutes passed like that. Then, in the distance, faint but real, I heard it. A siren. At first, I wasn't sure. But then it grew louder. Closer. The man straightened immediately. They're here, he said. My heart jumped so hard it hurt. Ethan, I whispered urgently, leaning closer. Help is here, okay? Do you hear that? Help is here. His eyes fluttered again. A little more responsive this time. Good, I breathed, tears finally slipping down my face. Good, baby, you did it. You stayed with me. The siren stopped outside. Voices. Footsteps. The door opened quickly, and emergency responders rushed in with equipment, their presence immediate and focused. Where is the patient? One of them asked. Here, I said quickly, standing only slightly so they could reach him, but not letting go of his hand. They moved fast, checking his pulse, his temperature, asking questions I tried to answer through tears and exhaustion. He's severely weak, one of them said quietly. Those words hit me, but I didn't pull away. I just stayed beside him. I'm right here, I whispered to Ethan again. I'm not leaving. They prepared a stretcher. Carefully, gently, they lifted him. My hand slipped from his for a second. Panic shot through me instantly. No, wait, I said quickly. One of the responders looked at me calmly. You can ride with him, she said gently. He's going to the hospital now. I nodded immediately, following without hesitation. As they moved him toward the ambulance, I stayed right beside him, holding on to whatever part of him I could reach. His eyes opened slightly one more time. And when they did, I leaned closer immediately. I'm here, I whispered. I'm right here with you. And this time, he didn't drift away. He stayed. Just a little longer. The ambulance doors closed with a heavy sound that felt louder than the sirens outside. Inside, everything was bright, controlled, and fast. Too fast for me to fully process. Ethan lay on the stretcher in front of me, small against the white sheets, surrounded by wires and soft beeping machines. The emergency responders worked around him with focused urgency, checking monitors, adjusting oxygen, speaking in quick, practiced sentences. I stayed right beside him. My hand never left his. Even when they moved equipment between us, I adjusted myself so I could still hold on. I'm here, I kept whispering. I'm here, baby, you're not alone. His eyes were half open again. Not fully aware, but present. That presence was enough to keep me from breaking completely. One of the paramedics looked at me gently. Has he been eating at all recently? My throat tightened. No, not properly, I said quietly. There wasn't anything. I tried everything I could. He nodded, not judging, just nodding. Another voice spoke quickly about dehydration, weakness, possible fever complications. The words blurred together, but I caught enough to understand one thing clearly. This had gone too far. The ambulance hit a bump in the road, and I instinctively leaned closer to Ethan. Hey, I said softly. It's okay, we're almost there. His fingers twitched slightly in mine. That tiny movement gave me hope again. We arrived at the hospital in a rush of lights and sliding doors. The moment the ambulance stopped, everything accelerated. Room ready, someone called. Vitals dropping, move fast. Hands lifted him from the stretcher. No, wait, I started, but they were already moving. Family can follow, a nurse said quickly, guiding me. I followed immediately. The hospital was bright, too bright after the darkness of the storm. Hallways blurred as we moved quickly through them. Machines beeped, footsteps echoed, voices overlapped. And through it all, I kept my eyes on him. We entered a room filled with equipment. They placed him on a hospital bed. I rushed to his side instantly, holding his hand again. I'm right here, I said quickly. I didn't leave, I'm right here. A doctor stepped in, already speaking. We're going to stabilize him first, he said calmly but firmly. He's extremely weak, likely severe dehydration and malnutrition, possibly infection from fever. Those words landed heavily in my chest. I nodded, though I barely understood how I was still standing. Do whatever you need to do, I said quickly. Please just save him. The doctor looked at me briefly. We're going to try. They moved fast. Oxygen mask placed gently over his face. IV line inserted. Monitors attached. Beeping filled the room, steady but fragile. I stood there, holding his other hand as tightly as I could. Ethan, I whispered, leaning closer. Hey, you're safe now, okay? You're at the hospital, you're going to be okay. His eyes opened slightly again. Just enough to see me. That moment hit me hard. Because he was still trying. Even now. Even like this. I'm here, I said again, voice breaking. I'm not going anywhere. A nurse adjusted the IV and spoke softly. He's responding, that's good. I closed my eyes for a second in relief. But I didn't let go. Not even for a moment. Time passed in fragments. Doctors came and went. Machines beeped steadily. The storm outside was now just something far away, separated by glass and walls and distance. But inside this room, everything was about him. At one point, his grip tightened slightly around my fingers. It was weak, but intentional. Mom, he whispered again. I leaned in immediately. I'm here, I said quickly. I'm right here, baby. His eyes stayed open a little longer this time. And for the first time since the night began, they looked a little clearer. Not strong, not recovered, but present. I'm sorry, I whispered softly, tears still falling. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. He didn't answer, but his fingers stayed wrapped around mine. And that was enough for me to stay standing. The doctor approached again, after a moment. He's critical but stable for now, he said. We'll monitor him closely. He's going to need time. Time. That word meant everything now. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said quietly. Then I looked back at Ethan. Still there. Still fighting. Still holding on. And I stayed beside him. Because leaving was no longer an option. Not now. Not ever. The hospital room settled into a quieter rhythm after the rush. The urgency didn't disappear, but it softened into steady monitoring, soft beeps from machines, occasional footsteps in the hallway, the faint hum of lights overhead. Everything felt controlled now, but my body still hadn't learned how to relax. I stayed in the chair beside Ethan's bed, leaning forward with my hand wrapped around his. I didn't trust distance anymore. Not even a few inches. He was still there. Still breathing with help now, oxygen flowing gently through the mask, IV fluid slowly doing what food and rest should have done days earlier. His face looked less tense than before, but still tired in a way I couldn't forget. Every few minutes I checked him. Just to be sure. Just to remind myself he hadn't slipped away while I blinked. A nurse came in quietly, checking the monitors. He's responding better than expected, she said softly. His vitals are stabilizing. Those words didn't fully reach relief inside me, but they loosened something in my chest, just enough for me to breathe more evenly. Can I talk to him? I asked gently. The nurse nodded. Yes, keep your voice calm. Familiar voices help. She stepped out again, leaving the room quieter. I turned back to him. His eyes were half open, no longer as distant as before. Still weak, but present enough to notice me. Hey, I whispered softly, leaning closer. You're still with me. His fingers moved slightly against mine. A response. Small but real. That tiny movement almost broke me all over again. I knew you would be, I said, forcing a soft smile through tired eyes. You're stronger than you think. His lips parted slightly, but no words came yet. I brushed his hair back gently. You scared me, I admitted quietly. But you did something really important tonight. You didn't give up. His eyes stayed on me for a moment longer. Then slowly closed again, not in collapse, but in exhaustion. Rest, I whispered quickly. It's okay, you can rest now, I'm here. For the first time, I didn't panic when his eyes closed. Because this time, I could feel the difference. A doctor entered later, reviewing charts on a tablet. He's improving slowly, he said. We're going to keep him under observation. He'll need fluids, nutrition support, and rest. I nodded, listening carefully. And he'll recover, I asked quietly. The doctor paused just slightly, not to alarm me, but to be honest. He's stable now. Recovery will take time, but yes, he has a good chance. A good chance. Those words stayed with me. After everything that night had been, a chance felt like something I had almost forgotten existed. When the doctor left, the room became quiet again. Ethan shifted slightly in his sleep. I stood up immediately, leaning closer. I'm right here, I whispered again. You're safe. His hand still held mine loosely. Not tight like before, but still holding. That mattered more than anything. Hours passed slowly. Outside the window, the storm had finally begun to fade. The rain less violent now, the thunder distant. It felt like the world was finally letting go of its anger. Inside the hospital, light replaced darkness in a way I wasn't used to anymore. At some point, I rested my head beside his bed, still holding his hand. Not sleeping fully. Just staying close. Because after everything, I didn't want to let even a moment pass where he might wake up and not find me there. A faint voice broke the silence later. Mom. I lifted my head immediately. "I'm here," I said quickly, sitting up. "I'm right here." His eyes were open again. Tired, but clearer than before. "Water," he whispered weakly. A nurse nearby moved instantly, bringing a small cup with careful assistance. I helped him gently, supporting him as he took small sips. Slow, careful, but real. "Good," I whispered softly. "That's good, baby." He leaned back again, exhausted after just that small effort. But he was calmer now, more grounded, more present in the room with me. I stayed beside him the entire time, not moving away, not letting go. Because for the first time that night, we weren't surviving the storm anymore. We were surviving after it. Morning came slowly through the hospital window. Not suddenly, not like a clean break from night, but in soft layers. The sky outside was still cloudy, but the storm had finally lost its voice. The world felt quieter, almost unsure of itself after everything it had thrown at us. Inside the room, the machines still beeped steadily. But now, they didn't sound threatening. They sounded like life returning. Ethan was still in the hospital bed, but something had changed in him since the night before. The tight fear in his face was gone. His breathing was steadier. The oxygen mask was still there, but lighter now, as if he needed it less with every passing hour. I sat beside him, my hand still holding his. I hadn't left. Not once. At some point, I must have fallen asleep sitting upright, because I remember waking up with my head resting near his arm. The first thing I did was check him. Still there. Still breathing. Still mine. Relief came quietly this time, not like panic breaking, but like something finally settling inside me. His fingers moved slightly in mine when I squeezed his hand. I looked up immediately. His eyes were open. This time, they stayed open longer. "Hey," I whispered softly, sitting up quickly. "Good morning." A faint, tired expression crossed his face. "Mom," he said again, but this time stronger than before. I smiled before I even realized I was crying. "I'm right here," I said gently. "I told you I wouldn't leave." A nurse came in shortly after, checking his chart and smiling faintly. "He's improving well," she said. "We'll reduce some support today if he continues like this." I nodded, not trusting my voice fully. When she left, silence returned, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Ethan shifted slightly, looking around the room. "Where are we?" he asked weakly. "At the hospital," I said softly. "You got sick, but you're getting better now." He was quiet for a moment, processing. Then his small voice came again. "I remember the rain." My chest tightened slightly. "You were so brave," I said gently, brushing his hair back. "You stayed with me the whole time." He looked at me for a long moment, then said something that stayed with me forever. "I didn't want to leave you." My throat tightened instantly. "You're not leaving me," I said quickly, holding his hand tighter. "Not ever, you hear me." He nodded faintly. And for the first time since that storm began, I believed it too. Later that day, doctors removed some of the stronger support. He was still weak but awake, present, slowly returning. I sat beside him the entire time, watching every small improvement like it was a miracle I didn't deserve but desperately needed. At one point, he even tried to sit up slightly, then laughed weakly when I helped him back down. It was small, but it was real, and it sounded like life again. When the room finally quieted in the evening, he looked at me again. "Amy," he said softly. "Yes." I was scared. I nodded slowly, brushing his hair back again. "I know," I whispered. "So was I." A pause. Then his tiny hand reached for mine again, stronger than before. "But you came back for me," he said. That broke something in me all over again. I leaned forward and kissed his forehead gently. "Always," I whispered, "no matter what." Outside the window, the sky was no longer violent. Just calm. Still cloudy, but softer. Like the world itself was finally learning how to breathe again. And inside that hospital room, so were we.